this is like me going through like my first breakup as a teenager. You know what I mean? So like the songs of the year just hit different. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
like I was like, oh my gosh, right?
Yeah.
Which brings me to my honorable mention. Let Her Go by Passenger.
Okay, actually, I love that song. All right, so 2014.
Ah, jeez. All right, 2014.
2014.
What can you say about that year?
Another EDM world year. Is EDM. This is like when it's about to peak. This is almost like its peak, right? This is peak EDM, as foretold by the previous year, right? So, "Wake Me Up" by who's that? David Guetta? Or was that Avicii? Avicii.
Don't ask me about EDM.
I think it was Avicii. So it's like "Wake Me Up" in summer, "Burn" by Ellie Goulding, "Animals" by Martin Garrix. We have "Boom Clap" as well. "Pompeii," "Problem" by Ariana Grande, "Shake It Off," "All About That Bass," "Wrecking Ball." It's a pretty balanced year for pop, but EDM was the king of that year. And it's funnily enough, the number one spot for albums of that year actually went to the Frozen soundtrack, which I thought was a little fun little.
That was fun, yeah. I was tempted to be
like, little tidbit.
My number one is Frozen.
The number one album of 2014 was the Frozen soundtrack, so that's a little fun tidbit. Obviously not on my list, but I mean, good songs, I guess. Anyway, so song of the year, honorable mention for me goes to "Rude" by Magic.
Ooh,
I love that song.
That's a good choice.
I love that song so much. I think it's so well written. I think again, it's a great fusion of that pop sound with the reggae and the surf vibe. That I love. It's so catchy. It's so fun. But yeah, that is my honorable mention of that year. Goes to "Rude" by Magic. But my song of the year goes to "Latch" by Disclosure featuring Sam Smith.
Ooh, okay.
And the reason I picked that one is because the album it's from, "Settle" by Disclosure, is one of my favorite albums of all time. I think it represents EDM when it was at its peak, and it represents the blueprint of good EDM at that time. It's not like "Don't You Worry Child" where it doesn't age well, because the simplicity of that music, the simplicity of the album, and "Latch," for example, is carried by Sam Smith and his his voice, because I think that was also one of the world's earliest exposures to Sam Smith, and that also drove his popularity. Is that particular like his range and his style of singing, which really, really pushed the song into like pretty much like Hall of Fame status for EDM. And again, it's catchy, rhythmically quite simple, but still very cohesive and like consumable, very easy to listen to, very, very well crafted chorus, catchiness in the vocals. Sam Smith does an amazing job on that, and the creative decision behind it. So yeah, that's why "Latch," and I still listen to that a lot from time to time. So "Latch" gets my song of the year for sure, 2014.
Oh my god. 2014 is a wild year. Just a shorts, like, for context, right? This is like me going through like my first breakup as a teenager. You know what I mean? So like the songs of the year just hit different. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
like I was like, oh my gosh, right?
Yeah.
Which brings me to my honorable mention. Let Her Go by Passenger.
Okay, actually, I love that song. Yeah.
Not my favorite song musically, no.
I love it.
But because of the significance of the song for the year for me.
Yeah, fair enough.
I was like, yeah, if you love her, let her go. Like, you know what I mean? Like, there's me
fair enough.
going to school and all that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I was tempted to put I'm not even sure if it was top 100, but what's that song? 5 Seconds of Summer. For you.
No, they trended quite a bit that year.
Their sad song. They have a sad song. I was tempted to put.
I'm not the biggest 5 Seconds of Summer fan, so
I know. I don't blame you for it. But like that was one of the songs that I listened to along with Let Her Go, like on the way to school, and I was sad because I went through my first breakup, and I was like, no, sad.
It's all over. Yep.
It's all over. I have to go to 4th year single. I don't know why I was complaining about it, but yeah, that's why Let Her Go is at My
Okay,
honorable mention.
All right.
My song of the year for 2014 though, Ain't It Fun, Paramore.
Okay. Yeah. Fair enough.
It ended at 47. It was our first taste into
New
pop
Paramore.
into new
Yeah.
Paramore. And I liked it. To me,
Mhm.
it was like, I remember when I first listened to it, I was like, no, they're not heavy anymore. What happened to Born for This? What happened to them? You know what I mean? They're not Paramore
Yeah.
anymore. But it just grew on me. And till today, I can listen to that song and just have a great time.
So that song was from their self-titled, right? That's not from After Laughter.
It's not. No, it's from the self-titled.
Yeah, it's from their self-titled. So my disclaimer comparing what I said earlier about their self-titled and how I didn't like it. I love Ain't It Fun. I love that song. I guess I was just talking about the debut album as a whole, but like that song was
I understand.
killer. That song was killer. Yeah, for sure.
So good. All right, what's your 2014 honorable mention
albums of the year? So honorable mention goes to Because of the Internet, sorry, by Childish Gambino. I think this is like his not ode to fame, but this was sort of a side to Donald Glover that nobody, like everyone kind of wanted to see after the whole Community thing. Because he did leave the show to focus more on music.
Right.
And this was one of the results of it. So I think it's a very significant album in that regard. It's also a great album. Very, very nothing overt, nothing crazy, just good music. So I had that as my honorable mention. But my album of the year coming in at number 3 for 2014, and my favorite Taylor Swift album of all time is 1989. Absolutely.
I respect that.
Now, Taylor Swift, each album that Taylor Swift released before this, and even after this, she was never shy about her evolution, right? Like, it was quite obvious from each significant move. She worked her way through her like teen queen phase, through like to a slightly more profound red pop era, and eventually landed into that global chart sound, which is 1989.
Yeah.
And you know what? Like, it's not uncommon. Global chart pop music has that distinct sound, so it's not unique, right? It's not a unique album in that regard. But that being said, it's my favorite Swift record for that very reason, because usually when artists evolve, they experience a bit of a hit or miss kind of thing. For example, that Paramore self-titled, right? Like when you move into a new style, maybe eventually you get good. Yeah. Maybe eventually it's a success, but like you have a couple of hits or misses, right? True. Comes off as weak, which is worrying when artists kind of debut new things, because you don't know how strong of a debut that might be when they're changing styles. Yeah. But yeah, and again, especially considering how strong After Laughter was. But that being said, 1989 was her first venture into this like defined modern pop chart sound with electronic like appointments and like overall production quality increase. And it was so well done. She nailed almost everything. Her and her team as well, which it was just like Jack Antoff of like Fun and Bleachers, or Fun Dot. I don't know how to say that name. Fun and Bleachers, and then Max Martin, who did like the Backstreet Boys, Britney Spears, Katy Perry.
That's all you need to know.
That's all you need to know. We're all on her team for that one, and they put together an incredible pop record. And I think while it leaves very little to her old styles, like it's a very, very stark contrast in her old styles. Somehow they just found a way to wrap her incredibly distinct vocals with just beautiful modern pop appointments. It's catchy, it's fresh. It is my favorite Taylor Swift album, and that is my album of the year for 2014.
I respect that. Mine's Red, but
yeah, I was gonna say you respect it. You don't agree, but you respect it.
I don't agree with it. I respect it. Great choice, Taylor Swift. Always love her. Well, not always. I shouldn't say always. For the past 6 years, love her. Great choice. All right, so I'm gonna go into the 2014 albums now, which is quite difficult for me to do. But so my criteria for this one was kind of just like, which songs do I remember the most from this year? And I listened to it as an album. Like, of course, it has to be like, so there's a lot of great singles, you know what I mean? A lot of great hits, like bam, 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 bam. But what were the songs I listened to consecutively and in the album form.
Yeah.
If it got me to do that as a whole. So that's why number one at my honorable mention for the 2014 album will go to My Everything by Ariana Grande.
Sure. Yep. Yeah.
It's my first time listening to her song from start for her album from start to finish.
That was very close to my honorable mention. Very close to being my honorable mention.
Remember just going through it and being like, do I like Ariana Grande now? like it made me think about it. You know what I mean? Because I remember seeing her in what's Victorious in Nickelodeon. That's where I first found out about her. And I remember I was like, oh, she's a good singer and she's cute. And this was the first time I took her as an artist seriously.
Yeah.
Which is weird to say now. Which is weird to say now because of where she is now, 6 years later, 7 years later. But at the time, I was like, oh, she can actually be a successful artist. And that's why it's my honorable mention.
And lo and behold, she definitely was.
Oh, for sure.
Lo and behold.
But my number one album of 2014 will go to Midnight Memories by One Direction.
Okay. Yeah, that would have never made it onto my list. And I know it made its way onto a couple of people's lists. But yeah, I mean, you have to explain this to me. You have to talk to me about that one as well, because I completely missed the train for the whole One Direction hype, for sure.
Yeah. So Midnight Memories by One Direction was the album that convinced me they're pretty good. So my journey with One Direction started very early. And I'm not saying this to be like, oh, hey, I was first. Like, I'm not saying that.
Yeah.
But I watched the X Factor when they were there. I remember them from that year. My friend was showing it to me. I think this 2009, around that time. I forget when exactly. But I watched their season. And I was like, oh, a boy band? It's kind of weird. We don't do that anymore.
Yeah,
so,
it is. Yeah.
So I remember, so they started coming out with songs like What Makes You Beautiful, One Thing, like, you know what I mean? Like, they just have like these pop hits. But this album breaks out of that. And I understand where you're coming from because you didn't go through that journey. But because of listening to them prior to this album and where they got during this album, it's very different. This is where they started using more rock elements in their songs. Which was so odd during the time. It was like, wait, what? You're using a distorted guitar? That's weird. You're not supposed to do that. You're a boy band. Yeah. But because they started doing that, I started to realize, oh, these are good songs. Even the song itself of Midnight Memories, in my head, it's very... I remember it as the album that made me like them. So
is that the record where Story of My Life is from?
What's this story? Yes, this was Story of My Life. So
because I quite like that song.
So this was that year where Harry grows out his hair. You know what I mean? Like they're going away from the whole. They're all clean cut. You know what I mean? Like they start growing up a bit, and we start to hear what feels more like their music compared to music made for them. At least that's what you understand, or that's what you feel from the album. That's why it's my number one song, my number one album.
Yeah, totally fair. Again, Story of My Life is probably the only song that I really kind of like learned to appreciate. So if that was where it's from, I can see why it's made it to your number one for sure. Very, very, very good. Actually, a fair evolution in their sound.
Story of My Life could have been one of my top 2 songs, if not for the album. That to me, that's how impactful that album was.
Fair enough.